So how do we actually judge a political leader? It's a tricky question, right? And today, we're going to use John Steenhuisen's time leading South Africa's Democratic Alliance as a perfect case study. Because his leadership, well, it's been this incredible high-stakes balancing act, trying to save a party in crisis while the entire political landscape was basically fragmenting around him. And that really brings us to the core question of this whole explainer. What's the real yardstick for political success? Is it just about piling up votes, growing your slice of the pie? Or is it about getting actual power, a real seat at the government table, no matter how you get there? This is the lens we're going to use to look at his entire time in charge. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute mess he inherited. Then we'll crunch the election numbers. After that, we'll get into the tough, painful trade-offs his strategy led to, check out how the party actually performed in government, and then, at the end, we'll deliver our final, data-driven verdict. Okay, first things first. To really get Steenhuisen's record, you have to understand the situation he walked into. This was not a party on a winning streak. It was a party staring into the abyss, facing a genuine, full-blown crisis. For the first time since South Africa became a democracy, the DA went backwards in a national election. I mean, think about that. Their growth, which for years had seemed totally unstoppable, just hit a brick wall. And that shockwave led directly to the resignation of its first black leader, Mmusi Maimane, which just threw the party into complete turmoil. The stakes for whoever took over next couldn't have been any higher.
All right, let's get into the hard data. Did Steenhuisen actually manage to turn the ship around? Well, the numbers tell a really specific and honestly a pretty fascinating story.
Okay, so just look at this table for a second. You see the context, right? Big, healthy growth under Helen Zille in 2014. Then, a really damaging slide backwards under Maimane in 2019. Now, jump to 2024. Under Steenhuisen, the party didn't exactly shoot for the moon, but it did grow. It clawed back 3 crucial seats. The bleeding had been stopped.
And that phrase right there, stem the bleeding, that became everything. It was the core mission of his leadership. The goal wasn't some huge, dramatic expansion. It was to stabilize the party, to stop the hemorrhaging, and just consolidate the base after the shock of 2019. And by that one measure, he absolutely delivered.
Now, this chart, this is where that small gain gets put into perspective. While the DA just nudged up by a single percentage point, the ruling ANC absolutely imploded. They shed a mind-blowing 17% of their support. So in an election where the ground was literally shifting like an earthquake under everyone's feet, the DA's ability to just hold its own and grow even a tiny bit was a massive strategic win.
And here is the punchline. That tiny little electoral gain, when combined with the ANC's historic loss, gave the DA leverage it had never, ever had before. It was the golden ticket. It was the key that unlocked the door to the government of national unity, putting the party in national power for the very first time.
But, and this is a huge but, stopping the electoral bleeding came at a really high price. It created what is maybe the central puzzle of Steenhuisen's leadership. The exact same strategy that stabilized the party also pushed a really key part of it away. Steenhuisen's leadership really boiled down to this one idea, a back-to-basics strategy. It was a very clear turn away from what Maimane had been trying to do, trying to attract black voters with identity-based appeals. The new focus was a much more traditional, almost old-school liberal message about the Constitution and just making things work. Good governance. And the result of that pivot? Well, it was a pretty dramatic exodus of the party's most high-profile black leaders. I mean, these were people who had been the face of the DA's project to broaden its appeal. Mmusi Maimane, the former leader, Herman Mashaba, the mayor of Johannesburg, the outspoken MP Phumzile van Dam, they all walked out, saying the party just wasn't a political home for them anymore.
This quote from political analyst Prince Michele back in 2019 really captured how it looked from the outside. The criticism was that in its search for stability, the DA was basically retreating into its old comfort zone and giving up on its dream of becoming a truly representative party for all South Africans.
And it wasn't just a perception. The numbers inside the party told the same story. Look at this. By 2023, just one single black African was left among the 10 most senior leaders in the DA. That lack of representation at the top creates what people call a demographic ceiling. It's like an invisible barrier that stops the party from connecting with a broader, more diverse group of voters, and that remains one of its biggest headaches for the future.
So, while the party was wrestling with its national identity, it leaned hard on an area where it was undeniably strong, its reputation for actually running things well. This was their trump card.
Now, this slide gives you a really balanced picture. On one hand, under Steenhuisen, the Western Cape cemented its status as the best-run province, and they had a huge breakthrough, winning an outright majority in the Mjini municipality in KwaZulu-Natal, which proved they could govern well outside their traditional home base. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Trying to manage these messy, multi-party coalitions in big cities like Johannesburg turned into a total nightmare, just this chaotic cycle of losing and regaining power.
Okay, so where does all this leave us? How do you weigh all these wins and losses to come up with a final verdict on John Steenhuisen's leadership?
Let's circle all the way back to our original question. If you measure success purely by how many votes you get, well, he failed. He never got the party back to that electoral high point of 2016. But if you measure success by securing real, actual power and political relevance, he pulled off something none of his predecessors ever did. He marched the DA right into national government. This timeline really captures his entire journey as leader, doesn't it? He started out as a crisis manager for a party that was in absolute freefall. He ended by putting that very same party right at the heart of national power, before announcing his own planned exit to focus on being a minister, leaving a very different party behind for whoever comes next. And that's really the key takeaway here. John Steenhuisen's legacy is one of strategic pragmatism. He wasn't the charismatic firebrand who could suddenly grow the party's base by millions. No, he was the steady hand on the wheel who stopped the decline, consolidated support, and then expertly played his cards to get the party into power when the moment of political chaos arrived.
And all of this leaves us with one final, massive question for the future. He leaves behind a party that is, without a doubt, more stable and more powerful than the one he inherited. But that fundamental challenge is still there. Can the next leader build on this stable foundation to finally solve the diversity dilemma and break through that demographic ceiling that has held the party back for a decade? That really is the billion-dollar question.